Texas A&M's offense is set to take a massive leap in year 2 under OC Collin Klein.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, I first of all want to get things started telling you about our friends over at Monarch Money. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On the show today, we're going to talk about the baseball team. Is the season come to an end after the loss to LSU in the SEC tournament? I want to talk about Jace Laviolette and what he did because it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen a human being do ever, and we'll talk about it. Want to talk a little bit about the defense and why I think that the upside is there for this unit to be incredibly, incredibly special. But I'll first want to talk about why I think that year 2, Collin Klein and this offense is going to have a dominant season and thoroughly improve on the numbers we saw from a year ago. I got this idea to talk about it today from an article from Saturday Down South, and it was they're doing their 100 things they're excited to see, and today was 50 through 26, and one of those was the year 2 Collin Klein offense, and this says the raw numbers for year 1 Klein offense were somewhat encouraging. Texas A&M scored more points per conference game than any SEC team, despite the back and forth quarterback situation between Connor Wigman and Marshall Reed. The latter is back to lead what should be one of the conference's better offense. Le'Veon Moss's road to recovery from his midseason injury is a popular topic of discussion, but there's a lot to like with the three-headed rushing attack of Reed, Ruben Owens, and Amari Daniels. Reed has to progress as a downfield passer and find consistent weapons, but that might be the only thing that holds A&M back from having the late season playoff buzz again. You know, we've talked about it. At the end of the day, what is going to make or break this season for the Texas A&M offense, I think without question, as we've said, is the development of Marcel Reed. But I think there's something to say about last season when you had the constant changing of quarterbacks. We started the year with Connor Wigman. He plays a couple games, gets hurt. You play a handful of games with Marcel Reed, and he wins you some games. Then you go back, in the Missouri game, and you go back in some of these games to Connor Wigman, and he has a few moments where he looks good. Then in the LSU game, he struggles, and they go back to Marcel Reed, and then they roll with Marcel Reed for the future. And it was just back and forth, and that is tough on a offensive coordinator. It is. And you could say, well, Klein's the quarterback coach. He should have had Wigman better prepared to be the starter all year, and this wouldn't have been this. Sure, you could make those arguments, and that's fair, and I'd understand that. But what I'm more getting at here more than anything is that this quarterback room this year, it's Marcel Reed or bust. Marcel Reed's your quarterback, and if he stays healthy, he'll be your quarterback all season long. I think we can all agree on that. We all feel pretty safe saying that. So, knowing that, the Aggies and their offense is going to, we all think, be pretty darn talented. Collin Klein's job this offseason has been to develop Marcel Reed. We talked about it. I had some concerns. I felt starting to feel a little bit better after that quote we saw from Coach Elko the other day when he talked about how he's starting to gain some confidence in what Marcel Reed's doing development-wise this offseason. There's definitely some things to be excited about on that front. This Texas A&M offense, I do believe, is going to take a step forward. I think that it's going to move in that right direction. And this year, once again, the talent is there around the running backs and quarterback. You have the receivers and the tight ends this year. I think we obviously know Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver are going to be special. Terry Buss is going to take a year or two leap. You got to get some great players. And ABR, I think Jonah Wilson's a stud. Isaiah Williams is going to be a good player. You've got a lot of talented wide receivers all over the field. We all believe Miles is going to come in and be special. Tight end room, I'm still bought in on Amari Black and Coyote Armstrong. I think those two guys are going to be special. I think that you're going to see some better tight end play. We know that Collin Klein's a guy that wants to get his tight ends more involved, and at times that can be difficult, but I think that you're going to see him continue to get those guys more involved this year, and I think that it's more talented. So in those two rooms, this offense will be more talented. The offensive line heading into last year, it was a question mark. We had our fair share of concerns, and it did exactly what we hoped. It exceeded expectations. It's exactly what we were looking for. It's exactly what we wanted to see out of this Texas A&M offensive line. Now heading into next season, it's a unit that many anticipate being one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. I've heard some folks have their concerns and talk about the spring game and stuff. I have zero concern about the offensive line after the spring game. I mean, you had players banged up. You had guys on different teams. I'm writing nothing into that. What I am looking at is the fact that you've got Armaj Reed-Adams and Trey Zune and some of these incredible offensive linemen that frankly have this unit looking pretty darn talented for next season. I think that you've improved in every aspect of offense. I really do. I believe that we've gotten better in every aspect of offense. I think that there are some concerns with, I still have my concerns with Marcel Reed and his development. There's no question there. And that's something that we're just going to have to see what happens. But, I believe in him, and I believe in Collin Klein. And I think that one thing that frustrated me is there were a lot of people frustrated with the play calling from Collin Klein. I get it. Yes, there are some. We could go back on last season, and I could give you 50 plays where I'm like, I don't know, why are we doing that there? I'm with you. I get it. Sometimes I think he's a little too run passy. I think we need to switch things up. Now I also think that he runs an offense that is built on running the football with good running backs and a quarterback who's a run first type of guy. So we're not run first, but a great runner. I think that this year he's going to be a great play caller, and I think that's going to be the difference. I think this Texas A&M offense is really going to take that step forward to where if the defense is good, which we believe it should be, this team can be great. Talked about it. The schedule's not easy. That kind of feels like but the problem is, here's the deal. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If you want to make a college football playoff coming out of the SEC, you're going to have to win some tough football games. This is the SEC. Okay. This is no joke. There are some really, really great teams in this conference, top to bottom. And heck, even, we obviously don't play them, but even Vandy's good. The SEC is getting better as a whole. I think that the SEC has had a few years of struggle of late. Obviously, I think that you've got the changing of the guard at Alabama, and Georgia's lost a couple games you'd be surprised about. But I'm telling you, this football conference is going to be really, really good. It's always has been, always will be. But it's not easy to just come in and win games. At the end of the day, this is a very talented conference, and while this schedule might be a tad bit easier or a tad bit tougher, than it was last year, it's, once again, and I say this a lot, you don't play Georgia, you don't play Ole Miss, you don't play Alabama. You're playing good football teams, but you're not playing any of those teams, and that is extremely, extremely helpful. So knowing that, you still got to go win some tough games at LSU, at Texas, at Notre Dame. You at Missouri, you've got some tough ones on the docket, but it could be a lot worse. So Collin Klein, I'm all in. I think that he's going to be better this year. And sometimes, hey, coaches make bad decisions too. It's not just players. It's not just players that mess up and do things wrong. Coaches make poor decisions as well. And I think that Collin Klein is going to be a whole heck of a lot better this season. I think that he is going to help Texas A&M get to that next level. And I'm really excited about this offense and how good it can be. And if Marcel Reed, I'm just telling y'all, with the weapons he's got, if Marcel Reed is able to just get a hair better as a passer and a decision maker and accuracy wise, all those aspects, this Texas A&M offense is going to be absolutely terrifyingly good for opposing teams. It's going to be scary how good this offense is. It's going to be tough to stop because of how well Marcel Reed can run the ball, and if he improves as a passer, good night, watch out. So I think Collin Klein's offense, the year 1 to 2 jump, is going to be very, very special. Want to talk about the defense. How do we feel about the upside of the defense? What are the concern points? What are the spots we feel pretty good about? We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So this Texas A&M defense, I've heard a lot more conversation about the offense of late, but I'm just telling y'all, this defense, I think, is going to be very, very, very interesting. And we're going to see what ends up happening with this defense, but I think that it is going to be, I think it's going to be pretty good. We are heading into this season. It's funny because it's a conversation we had, I think, more about some different positions last year. But yes, we have our fair share of concerns with the Texas A&M secondary. It has been a struggle. It was obviously a struggle 2 years ago, and heading into last year, I thought it was going to improve, and it didn't. But I stand by the fact that I think that Coach Elko is a darn good coach. I think that this room is good. I think there were some great additions via Humphrey and Shaw into that room. I think you've got a lot of young talent. I think you've got, like I said, some of these freshmen, some of these redshirt freshmen, some of these sophomores will be able to step up and help out this unit. And then I think you've got a couple pretty good guys, especially in Will the Blanket Lee. I think that this secondary, and I say this a lot, and it's funny because this is the same conversation. The conversation we're having right now is the same conversation we had about the offensive line last season. I think that this secondary, there are without question a fair share of concerns, no doubt. But the talent is there. The talent was there last year. The talent was there the year before, but the talent's there. And I believe that this is going to be the year where they figure it out. Sometimes it has to do with players clicking. I mean, there's a lot of losing in the secondary isn't always just athleticism. Sometimes it's miscommunication. I mean, I've seen countless breakdowns of communication in our secondary over the last handful of years. Yes, sometimes players just flat out get beat. That happens. But I've also seen communication breakdowns, and I think having some players that have been here for a little bit now, and I think that's going to help. I'm asking this Texas A&M secondary not to be a top 5 unit in college football, not to be the number 1 secondary in the SEC. I'm asking for this Texas A&M secondary to simply be a top 8 unit in the conference. I think with what we've got at defensive line, what we've got at linebacker, if this secondary can just be top half in the SEC, this defense is going to be solid. And, you can't walk around it. Texas A&M is losing a lot of talent on that defensive line between both of the Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, and, of course, Nick Scott heading off to the NFL. You're losing a lot of talent at these positions. You are. You're losing a ton of talent. But at the same time, I do believe that you've got some players that are ready to step up. We've talked about Cassius Howell, who I just anticipate. I talked about on my bold predictions show the other day how I think there's a world where he just puts up massive sack numbers. I mean, I think 8 is very realistic. 10's bold, but you never know. I mean, this kid is special. He's one of the highest graded pass rushers returning to college football for a reason. He, was kind of playing second fiddle to some players last year, but it's going to be his rodeo this year, and I think he's going to be special. You went and got a couple great players out of the portal to come off the edge for you. I think Oyenum's going to have a great season, the Iowa State transfer. We need Hicks to take that step forward. That's a big part of this. I do think that Hicks taking that leap is going to be crucial, but I believe that he's going to be able to do it. I do believe that. And at the same time, I think that this linebacker room, I really think that Terry York and Scooby Williams are going to put together a darn good season. I think that these two, I bet if there was a ranking list right now of the 16, linebacker tandems in college football, those two, Scooby Williams and Terry York, would probably be in that 6 to 10 range, maybe. I think they have a shot to be top 3. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know about all of the linebacker tandems in the SEC, but maybe they're not. But I'm telling you, I bet that's probably where they'd be ranked. I think they're a top 3 linebacker unit in or the linebacker tandem in the SEC. I think that York's going to have a special season. So yeah, I mean, my concern on the defense, on this defense, lies with the interior of that defensive line and the secondary. I believe in the guys coming off the edge on that defensive line, and I believe in the linebackers. If your secondary overachieves, if your interior defensive linemen overachieve, this Texas A&M team is going to be very, very, very special. This defense is going to be very special. It has the upside to be able to achieve that. And I just think that this unit is going to find a way to put together some great numbers. Texas A&M's defense is normally talked about as one of the, best units in college football, and one of the best units in the SEC. And I think this year it's going to be, I still think people are going to look at Texas A&M's defense as probably a top 25 defense and probably a top 8 defense in the SEC. I'm sure that's how the national media is going to look at this defense. But at the end of the day, I do think that this Texas A&M defense is in a spot where it could overachieve those expectations. There are question marks around it. There are folks that don't know. There's some things we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the secondary. We don't know how good your interior defensive line is going to be. There are a fair share of concerns for sure. But at the end of the day, I really do believe that this Texas A&M defense is going to be good. I think that it's a different feel for a Texas A&M defense heading into the season, but I think that it's a feel that could pay off because I don't think the expectations are as high as normal, but they should be because I think this is going to be a darn good unit with a lot of talent on it. So I'm a big believer in Texas A&M's defense. This is what I want to have y'all do for me in the YouTube comments. Tell me where y'all think Texas A&M's defense is ranked among the 16 SEC schools preseason. Where do y'all, because we'll start to see, especially over the next month or two, we'll start to see more top 25. This list, top 25. Where's the Texas A&M defense going to be ranked in the preseason rankings among SEC defenses, and where do you believe it should be ranked? Where do you believe it'll be ranked at the end of the season? Let me know those things in the YouTube comments. I'm curious to hear what y'all have to say. We're going to talk about baseball. Probably the end of the season, realistically. We'll find out today, more than likely the end of the season. But I have a few things I want to talk about coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Texas A&M gets a couple big wins in the SEC baseball tournament. They take down a few different ball clubs in Hoover. They, of course, beat the Mississippi State Bulldogs 9-0, and then they beat the Auburn Tigers 3-2. They were then They were then playing LSU in the quarterfinals and lost this game 3-4. A ball game where you got a pretty great outing from Fresh Corn. I thought one of his best outings of the year. Patton, 5 hits, 4 runs. 3 strikeouts at about 4.2 innings of play for a game that deep into the tournament. I mean, 4 runs, and it's not the worst outing ever, but definitely not his best outing of the season. But the thing I want to talk about, let's be realistic. Yes, we'll find that we know the 16 regional hosts. I would say Texas A&M's chance of making the tournament are 1%, maybe 0.5%. I don't see it happening. But, and, we'll talk about this tomorrow when things are official, but I just wanted to say what Jay Laviolette did. I have never in my life had more respect for an athlete. Seriously, ever in my entire life have I had more respect for an athlete than I have for Jay Laviolette. What was more than likely his last game at Texas A&M, let's be realistic, he's the guy that's going to go in the first round of the MLB draft. He gets hit by a pitch, has a fracture, was it his finger or his hand? Beside the point. Has that happen on Wednesday, wakes up, and has that happen on in the Auburn game, wakes up the next morning, has the surgery at whatever it was, 8 a.m, and goes and plays against LSU that night. I have no words to describe how much I respect him for that, because, and that's just, he cares about this school, he cares about his teammates, and he loves the game of baseball. And I'll tell you what, they just don't make athletes like that anymore. They don't make human beings like that anymore. And they don't make them like that anymore, especially in, Laviolette's generation. I mean, how he's a junior. I'm probably 2 years, 3 years older than he is. Our generation, they don't make them like this anymore. This is just, it's not how it is. I mean, it's a soft generation that for at some point, it's not everybody. And this kid is just special. What he went out and did, I just have so much respect and for him. So I wanted to say that. I mean, just an absolute Texas A&M baseball legend that will never be forgotten. Assuming he does, obviously we'd love him to come back, but he should go to the MLB or to the draft because he's a future MLB player. But on Coach Early, I'm saying stick with them. I think Coach Early it was a season that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a massive disappointment. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat this. You were the number one overall team to start the season, and you're not going to make the postseason. That is one of the worst downfalls we've ever seen in college baseball history. But I do believe that I'd stick with them another year, and I want to hear y'all's thoughts. There might be a lot of disagreements there. Let me know how we feel about this. I think you give them one more shot. The thing about Texas A&M baseball is we could get a darn good coach, and that's why, if they want to pull trig and get rid of them, okay, like I get it, but I'd maybe roll with them one more year. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what it is, and I wanted to say this, and it just felt like this was a fun season. I don't know why. And I think it was maybe how rough it started and then how rough SEC play started, and this team found a way to rally. And I mean, once again, if that collapse against Missouri doesn't happen, they're in the tournament. That's if they just win that series against Missouri, they're in the tournament, I think. I mean, that's just the reality. They just, without question, would be in the tournament there. I think that absolutely killed all of the momentum. I mean, you won 11 conference games. If you would have made if you win that, you win 13, you win a couple in the tournament, you're in the tournament if you win that Missouri series. So that was frustrating. It was really weird, crazy. I mean, there's lots of words you could use to describe it, but it is what it is. But I, in a weird way, enjoyed this season. I don't know if y'all feel me on that. In a weird way, I mean, obviously it was terrible and did not go well, but I kind of enjoyed it in a weird way. But so let me know. Do you hold on to coach? Do you go find a new coach? And let me know y'all's thoughts on what Jay Laviolette did in the YouTube comments. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Happy Memorial Day. Hope everyone's really enjoying this day. I know I am, and I appreciate all those that made it happen. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. We will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.